A traditional hands-off e-course is dying. In this AI age, information is a commodity, and why would a lead pay a lot of money for a static e-course when they can ask an AI agent for a step-by-step guide in 3 seconds? You fear that AI is making you invisible. But here's the psychological reality. While AI provides information, it also creates an enormous human connection deficit. And that is your chance.
Creating, reorganize, creating, reorganize, creating, reorganize, creating, reorganize.
If you are a new or an aspiring founder of your small business and have no time to waste or really struggle to do your social media marketing, you will enjoy our Creating Reorganized show. In my day job as a psychology professor, I teach my bachelor and master students in real life how to reorganize processes in a goal-directed and future-proof way in companies. And that's what I have done for a living as a former IT strategy consultant. For my own career coaching business on the side, I can only dedicate a fraction of my time because, I prioritize care work for my little children. I face the same or similar challenges like all small business owners. So I applied all my experience and knowledge to create my other video podcast, Postdoc Transformation Show, to streamline my social media marketing and to boost sales of my coaching, e-courses, and affiliate products or services. I strategically capitalize on professional tools to scale my impact according to my vision of life. Listen and subscribe to this Creating Reorganized show so you will learn to do the same for your own business, to build the know, like, and trust factor, and to boost sales of your services or products. Please also ask your business-specific questions because for the next seasons, I envision interview episodes with aspiring and new founders like you if you want to get your Creating Reorganized according to your vision of life. As in every episode, at the end, I will wrap everything up from a psychological method, theory, or concept point of view. So stay tuned until the end of this episode, especially if you are my bachelor and master student in real life. I would love for you to take notes and maybe even already recognize my arguments.
Dear Creating Reorganizer, welcome back to episode 23 of the Creating Reorganized show. And if you are hungry to market and sell your services and products 24/7 without burnout, well, then you are in the right place. Today, we're doing a strategic pivot. So let's address the elephant in the room. A traditional hands-off e-course is dying. Okay, so in this AI age, information is a commodity. And why would a lead pay a lot of money for a static e-course when they can ask an AI agent for a step-by-step guide in 3 seconds? And I don't know whether you are following me also on LinkedIn, but I just wrote a LinkedIn post about one of my Creating Reorganizers who asked me more informed questions after inputting all my podcast links into ChatGPT and getting a 7-day listening plan. And I totally understand this. Let me share my view as a professor in real life, and that story will directly link back and make a point to today's episode on a human membership. All right. I know that my bachelor and master students in real life upload the best YouTube and other internet links, but also illegally full copyrighted books and research articles and also my lecture script into Notebook LM. And then they discuss and learn with their tailored AI tutor. If they do that, of course, they will learn with better equipment than without AI. So I'm happy about that they have these opportunities. My children also have these opportunities. However, at the workplace and also in life in general, they need to be able to raise their voice and communicate their opinion against all odds, understand and resolve their own and others' conflicts, motivate themselves and others in tough times to build resilience. And for all of that, they need a social community with real humans at a comparable spot in their journey. So a human community in which they feel psychologically safe to try and fail, to feel seen when they have achieved a milestone, or also to be made gently accountable for not progressing as they could. So my most mature students still come to my lectures and then they ask me challenging questions, just like this Creating Reorganizer who had some more questions in depth. So they ask me challenging questions, which ideally will lead to a discussion and new insights based on our human interaction, on our social exchange, on an informed and motivated basis. My fellow professor colleagues are always amazed how I am able to have long queues of students waiting outside of our lecture hall because they wait for their turn of getting feedback from me based on what they have worked on inside my lecture hall. So my individual constructive one-on-one feedback is key for their progress, and that's why they come back to my lectures and sometimes even spend their break waiting in line patiently for my feedback. So what's the gist of my story for you, dear creative organizer? If you offer a knowledge and experience-based service like coaching or teaching, or you want to promote your book or whatever, then an e-course has been the first choice before the AI era. I had my share of success. But like I said in the beginning of this episode, why would a lead pay a lot of money for your static e-course when they can ask an AI agent for a customized step-by-step guide in 3 seconds, and maybe also an implementation plan and holding one accountable as such? So now you are in competition with AI and also with human competitors who capitalize on AI better than you. So your leads must trust you more than AI or your AI-boosted competitor. And your business promotion video podcast, by the way, can help you build that trust. And then you can be available for the virtual handholding. And that is why building an e-course and hoping for sales is becoming a high-risk gamble, I would say. So think back to episode 6 about free content and paid offers. We discussed the delicate balance of what to give away and what to charge for. And in 26, the paid offer can no longer just be information. That is dead. If it is, AI will eat your business. And many business owners are feeling the chill. You're seeing lower conversion rates and you're wondering, is my expertise becoming worthless? And you fear that AI is making you invisible. But here's the psychological reality. While AI provides information, it also creates an enormous human connection deficit, and that is your chance.
Let's pause for a moment to respect those who sponsor this valuable episode. Thanking our sponsors for the financial support, we are happy to return to a valuable episode.
While AI provides information, it also creates an enormous human connection deficit, and that is your chance. The more our screens are flooded with perfect AI-generated slop, the more isolated we feel, the more defeated we feel. So in our business, your leads aren't just looking for how-to anymore. They are fighting the loneliness epidemic of the digital workspace. So they don't want just another login to a static e-course platform. They want to sit at a table with a real human being, someone they trust, who they want to ask and be guided. So ideally, they choose you as their guide. And that's why we are now talking about monetizing your message through the lens of human community, curation, and deep connection. So we are moving from the static e-course to the recurring membership hub. We are turning your expertise into a remedy for isolation. So are you ready to stop being an information vending machine and start being a community architect? Today, we turn your message into a psychologically safe space for your leads. Let's do Creating Reorganized. Let me get personal. Okay, isolation is something I understand deeply. As a Chinese Indonesian immigrant child in Germany, I often felt like the other. There were not so many Asian families around. Even when, I often get mixed up with the others. So we're all individuals, but apparently we all look very similar. Maybe even because I was the best high school student in 2000, I only had a few friends. And yes, maybe I was also not the most fun companion for after-school activities, so my social skills were probably lacking. At the end of the day, my academic success did not solve my feeling of sitting on the periphery. I was looking for a group to belong to, but the in-group was always, they always seemed to have an invisible barrier, and only when they needed me to help them in school, I was asked. So I honed, or maybe also not really, my social skills always with nerds who were quick to grasp, or with considerably younger kids I tutored. And I learned having fun and enjoying free time without a goal only later in my mid-adult life, which is kind of sad. And that's why I'm also encouraging my own children to enjoy life now and not later, one day, after they have accomplished whatever in school. So when I was doing my PhD at the International Graduate School of Neuroscience in Bochum, Germany, that was in my mid-20s, and I was still this socially awkward student. I spent thousands of hours in dark rooms, coding experiments, analyzing rain data. It was intellectually rewarding, yes, but socially, it was a desert. And I realized then that high-level expertise can be a lonely place. You climb the mountain of knowledge only to find that the peak is quite small and the air is thin. And actually, that is something that I surprisingly recognized later in life as well. So then I leaped into the corporate world at Aldi South and Accenture, and suddenly I was part of a global chain. And I already said that was very humbling. But even there, in the high-pressure world of IT strategy, I saw exactly that same pattern. Managers, senior managers, partners, whatever, with massive budgets and power, feeling completely alone in their decisions. They didn't need more white papers. They needed a human sounding board. And I remember then one senior manager saw me walking down the hall and asked me to get something off his chest. And I wondered why he would not talk to someone on his team or on the same level, because I only knew him from our broader board meetings, which I supported. So later, I realized that he trusted me more than others to discuss what was worrying him leading his team members, which is actually my expertise. Because as an IT strategy consultant and a psychologist, I was often tasked as a leadership coach for chief information officers who needed to become better leaders for their teams. That's a different story. But they needed a supply chain of success. Just remember episode 13, as linked in the show notes. They needed a supply chain of success that most importantly included human empathy. So when I started my first video podcast, the Post of Transformation Show, for the scientists leaping into business, well, I thought I would just sell e-courses. Because I thought, well, I'll just record my workshops, put them behind a paywall, and go back picking up my kids, because anything else I would not be able to deliver. But in my data from Podbean, I saw a different story. People came back every week, so I had a huge retention rate. They were looking for a virtual mentor to bridge their transition from the lab to business. And they weren't buying content. They were buying companionship through the process. And my audience wasn't looking for an e-course to tell them how to write a CV. They were looking for Eleanor who had been there, done that. And I realized that my unAIable story, my voice, my origin, was the antidote to their isolation. For Creating Reorganized, I've moved away from the hands-off model. I host my knowledge hub on Thinkific, but it's not a static e-course library. It's a recurring human community where you and I work on your Creating Reorganized journey together. And this pivot saved me from burnout. So that's episode 15, because I stopped trying to be a perfect content creator and started being a present community leader. If I can do it while being a part-time professor and a mom, so can you. We are moving from information to affiliation. We are building a legacy, not a library of e-courses. Dear Creating Reorganizer, this would not be an episode of your Creating Reorganized show without a psychological model theory or concept, and now it's time to get your notebooks out. So to monetize your message, we have to look at Touchable and Turner's social identity from 1979. And this theory explains that a person's sense of who they are is based on their group membership. Groups give us a sense of social identity, a sense of belonging to the social world. And in the age of AI, your leads are losing their in-group feeling. They are overwhelmed by bots. To monetize, you must create a digital in-group. This is where you leverage your video podcast to build trust. That is episode 1, as linked in the show notes. And you are not just a service provider, you are a tribal leader. Okay, so let's look at the Kano model, which we already touched on in episode 21, as linked in the show notes. And in product development, you have the basic needs, must-haves. You have performance needs, more is better, and then you have the delighters, the unexpected joy. So in 26, a static e-course is a basic need. It is expected, but a human in the lead support, that is the delighter. That is what makes your offer the obvious choice over AI, which is episode 14 as linked in the show notes. So here's how we map the social identity theory into a recurring membership using our strategic partners.
Before we continue, we want to appreciate those who finance this valuable episode for you. After this short salute to our sponsors, we now return to our inspiring episode.
Here's how we map the social identity theory into a recurring membership using our strategic partners. Social categorization. People categorize themselves and others into groups to understand the social environment. And your video podcast on Podbean is the flag you plant. When you speak about return on invest and burnout, you're signaling to other exhausted business owners, you belong with me. You are the unalienable service provider, the business owner, the founder, whatever. So that is your personal branding, which we also discussed in episode 16. So for example, looking at my exam preparatory workshops in real life as a professor, I also ask my students to categorize themselves according to their level of readiness to work on the task. This way, I can assign more homogeneous groups per level. They can study together in a more efficient and effective way before, and I can coach each individual in a more meaningful way so that every individual student has the best outcome from a workshop time together. And next time we do the workshop, they are even more motivated to come in prepared because they want to go into the good groups, right? So now we talk about social identification. And this is where you move from an e-course to a membership. So you're using Thinkific not to just host e-courses, videos, but to host a recurring knowledge and experience hub. So instead of a one-time payment, it's a monthly fee to access you and a cohort of peers. And this fulfills this attractive delighter of a human connection that AI cannot replicate. The more you can offer ongoing support, the more your leads are willing to continue your subscription. And to be honest, my students like when I can recall key information on their journey. They feel seen and understood. They feel like I listen to them. I give my attention to them. And attention is a high currency in a membership. Now we can talk about social comparison. In your membership, your leads find social proof that they aren't crazy for wanting a vision of life that includes a business and a family. So they compare their progress not to a bot, but to a peer on their spot in their journey. Now here's the tech integration. We use Typeform for monthly pulse surveys within our membership. We also share the anonymized data with the group, and this creates a shared reality, if you like, and fights isolation. And when people see that 70% of the group is also struggling with blah, 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 they feel safe. They belong, and they are motivated to continue on their journey. So by applying the social identity theory to your business, you can turn your e-course and the membership into a home. Your message isn't just words. It's a membership pass to a group that gets it, to a leader that gets it. And that is the ultimate monetization in an isolated world. Okay, so let's get practical. I'm a fan of data. Who would have figured? And in my season 2, Podbean Statistics, I had one aha moment. That was connection wins. I recently analyzed my downloads from my Podbean report, and I saw that episode 15, Stop Marketing Burnout, was well received. Why? Because it addressed a pain point shared by the entire community. But here's the kicker. When I looked at episode 12, How to Test and Monetize Your Ideas, I saw that the average conversion rates were steady, but the conversion to my email list was 3 times higher. Why? Because in episode 12, I didn't just give a lecture, but I asked the audience to test their ideas using a Typeform quiz. And I moved them from being passive observers to active participants. And that is the human in the lead workflow. So in the hub, that is on Podbean, I recorded an episode about why every business owner needs a video podcast that promotes your business. And then the qualifier, I used Typeform to ask, so what's one thing that makes you anxious to start your video podcast right now? So the solution is, afterwards, I invite them to my Creating Reorganized newsletter and also to a Thinkific community hour where we discuss those anxieties. I record as well, and I use then Descript to take the highlights of that live session and post that back into the membership hub. And that gives me that retention because now they see the whole thing is real and there are other people who are also asking the same questions or even different questions, and they are not alone. But we get actionable advice so that they can get further in their journey of starting their video podcast. And the result is I'm building a recurring revenue stream that gets better and better as more people join, because it's not just about one single person having a problem, but we all have problems that we can tackle together in a better way. So the social identity of that group grows stronger with every interaction. We are now invested in helping others. I'm monetizing my presence, not just my past knowledge. And this is how you can balance human and AI efforts, which is also episode 9, and to maximize return on invest, which is also episode 11. So build a membership that cures isolation without burning you out, because at the end of the day, that is also a one-on-one investment. Your tech stack must be focused on engagement, not just delivery. And this is why I have chosen the strategic partners. Thinkific. It's the platform that allows you to scale a knowledge hub while keeping the community feel front and center. Their mobile app ensures that your members can take the community with them to the school gates or to the gym or in the commute, or I don't know, in the public transport or whatever, just like I do. When we're talking about broadcasting your message, I use Podbean because it continuously broadcasts my unAIable voice to find new members for our tribe. And that can help you as well. Their analytics help me, at least, to see exactly where my return on invest is coming from. Then I also have Active Campaign, which is my digital glue. And we use it to send miss you messages if a member hasn't logged in for 14 days. And this fights isolation before it leads to cancellation. And it automates the care so you can provide the connection. I also use Typeform AI for creating forms that delight me, that delight others as well, because the usual forms that I see, they often feel like a tax audit. I don't know. So I want a form that feels like a conversation with videos or audios. We use it for the get to know you onboarding to capture the human stories that make the community real. And then I also have Descript because it allows me to quickly edit live community calls into marketing gold. And it removes the ups and the ads and the filler work so you look like the expert you are without spending hours on editing. And then, of course, we need a multiplier of yourself. So now that we have all these digital assets, we need to multiply that and observe how the day performs, and that is in Metrical. Metrical shows you which community topics are getting the most engagement on social media, so you know exactly what your in-group wants to talk about next month. So this stack honors your vision of life by automating the admin so you can focus on the affiliation, and it's the secret to marketing 24/7, 365 without burnout. If you need a deep dive into that, if you're new to our show, episode 10 will be great for you. Now we need to talk about a low entry point that many of you might be overlooking, the paid in-person meetup. And that's my newest favorite model. So in a world of digital slop, physical presence is the ultimate premium. But you don't have to start with a retreat or so. I recommend offering a low-cost ticketed meetup, perhaps a 3-hour intensive workshop in a local cafe or a co-working space. And you can charge a small fee, say like $50 or $100 or euro. And this isn't where you make your millions, but this is where you build unstoppable trust. When people see you in person, they realize that you are a real human with real expertise. Let me know if you're interested in a 3-hour podcasting workshop with me in Düsseldorf, Germany. Or if you're not in Düsseldorf, Germany, maybe it's better via Zoom. Either way, it would be an intensive 3-hour podcasting workshop. And to sign up for that, please join my Creating Reorganized newsletter so that we can tackle all your business promotion video podcast questions on an informed and motivated basis. I've seen this approach work wonders. You host a meetup, record a few behind the scenes with Descript, and suddenly your digital membership feels 100% more real to those who could not attend. They want to attend the next one. So you are creating a supply chain of success, a pull effect that starts with a handshake and ends with a recurring subscription. I know some of you have amazing expertise. A lot of you are my colleagues, professors who have books and are really experts. Maybe you are laid off from a senior manager position and you want to build your own business now, but you don't have this marketing arm underneath anymore. So maybe you are a lonesome founder and your leads need your expertise. Maybe you want to build this hub now, but the IT strategy of it feels like you don't have the time for that. This is exactly why the Creating Reorganized podcasting service exists. We don't just produce a show. We help you architect a membership ecosystem. We use my IT strategy, standardized operating procedures to ensure that your video podcast on Podbean acts as the gateway to a recurring revenue community on Thinkific. We handle the production, the distribution, and the human in the lead automation using ActiveCampaign and Typeform. We build the digital home so you can be the host. And because of my schedule as a professor and a mom, I only take a few exclusive clients each lecturing semester. And if you want to move from one-off course to recurring revenue hub, check out the link in the show notes to sign up. So here's your actionable prompt. Don't build an e-course today. Instead, go to LinkedIn or Instagram and post this. I'm thinking of hosting a monthly 60-minute Ask Me Anything session for a small group of business owners. If I did this for the price of a couple of pizzas, I don't know, do you want to see it? And honestly, I did this when I was at universities, when I literally paid for my lookalike leads so that I could get the real questions that would fuel my workshop content. Sign up for my newsletter and tell me the responses you get. I will help you to analyze the social identity signals, stop selling information, and start selling belonging. All right, thank you for joining me in this Creating Reorganized virtual lecture hall today. Remember, in an AI world, being real is your greatest revenue driver. If you want to scale your legacy, check out episode 22. And of course, remember the supply chain of success. That's episode 13, as linked in the show notes, and all affiliate links for all partners are in the show notes. Using them helps me to keep the show free while I stay connected with my family, and you can do the same. I'm Eleanor Soei-Winkels, and I'll see you in episode 24, The Strategic Network. Now, happy creating reorganize according to your vision of life.
Do you want to start your own side business as a runway for your better future? Then you will benefit from our free business readiness quiz as linked in the show notes. Thank you for listening to our Creating Reorganized show. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, share it with your business friends, and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. Your feedback helps me as a small business owner to serve more small business owners for free, so thank you. I'm your host, Professor Dr. Eleanor Soei-Winkels, and now I wish you a happy creating reorganized according to your vision of life.
Creating